this is Haley Morgan
and Sheridan Adair,
and this is our extra credit project for Mr. Lankford's class 2401, Anatomy and Physiology. And today we are going to be talking about the skull. Now let's go ahead and get started. Here you see the frontal bone. The frontal bone consists of the glabella and also the supraorbital foramen. These are the left and right parietal bones. The left and right parietal bones are separated by the sagittal suture. Again, this is the frontal bone, and these are the parietal bones. They are separated by the coronal suture. This is the occipital bone. It is separated from the left and right parietal bones by the lambdoidal suture. Now, this is the temporal bone. It is separated from the left and right parietal bones because it is on both sides of the skull. The suture that separates the temporal bone and parietal bones is the squamous suture. Now you see the sphenoid bone. This is the zygomatic bone, which is also known as the cheekbone. Now we will talk about the nasal bone. You can see the perpendicular plate, and on both sides of the perpendicular plate is the middle nose concha.
Excuse me, middle nasal concha.
Under the middle nasal concha is the inferior nasal concha. Under the perpendicular plate and in between the inferior nasal concha is the vomer. Now we will look at the maxilla. On the maxilla is the infraorbital foramen. Now we will look at the mandible. On the mandible, where the red dots are the mental foramens. Now we will look at the sides of the mandible. All of these locations that we are about to look at are on both sides of the mandible. The blue dot that you see is the mandibular condyle. The pink line you see is the mandibular notch. And the pink you see at the end of the mandibular notch is the coronoid process. Under the coronoid process is the mandibular ramus. Now we're going to look at the eye sockets. The dark blue you see is the lacrimal bone. The red you see next to it is the ethmoid bone. Both of the lighter blues you see are the sphenoid bone, which is located on the outside of the skull also. The black you see in between the sphenoid bone, which is also known as the greater wing, is the supraorbital fissure. And the black dot that you see inside of the sphenoid bone is the optic canal. And the dark green you see on the outside of both eye sockets is part of the zygomatic bone, which, as we talked about earlier, is the cheekbone.
If we turn the skull over, we have this big pink hole, which is the foramen magnum. If you go up from the foramen magnum to the occipital bone, you have this blue line, which is the external occipital crest. From the external occipital crest, you have this protuberance, which sticks out from the side, as you can see. It's right here. And this protuberance is called the external occipital protuberance. So you have the foramen magnum, external occipital crest, external occipital protuberance. And those are on the occipital bone. Below the foramen magnum is the occipital condyle. Once again, occipital. If you look below the occipital condyle, you have the vomer. And if you remember, we talked about that earlier. Can you remember where that was? In the nose. There's your vomer. So now onto the mouth. Right here we have the palatine bone. Below the palatine bone, if we open his jaw, you have the palatine process. And then you have this teeny tiny little hole here, which is the incisive fossa. The palatine bone and palatine process make up the hard palate. You will not see the soft palate because it is not made of bone. Here we have a hole, which is your external acoustic meatus. What do you think that's used for? Well, acoustic is hearing. It is for your ear. Here you have a protuberance, and this is your mastoid process. And of course, like always, we also have it on the other side of the skull. We hope that this video has helped, and we also hope that we make a good grade because we have spent a lot of time into it. So thanks for watching. Bye-bye.